Alright, let's talk about math in fighting games. Now, the thing about math in fighting games is that most people hear that and go, that, like, what are you talking about, math in games? Well, I mean, besides the math games that some of us grew up with as a kid, all video games are just numbers, binary code, equations working in the background in order to make things work as they should. But in this particular case, I'm not going to be focusing on the basic math of fighting games, frames, where they are, that kind of thing. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at percentages and how that kind of thing can really amplify the damage if not handled properly. Kotal Kahn in Mortal Kombat X is the perfect example of this because this is how percentages can generally be seen as treated in these games and why most characters only have one damage increasing buff. For you see, Kotal actually has a 2.5. Because the sun does do damage over time, but in this game it doesn't actually boost his damage. What does boost his damage is a move that was cut between MKX and MK11, the chest cut. For sacrificing 10% of his health, the next 3 hits Kotal Kahn unleashes will deal 50% more damage. Turning this into this. And the way you can check your math is if you make sure that your damage information is on and compare certain moves. This button is 5%, so you hit this, it becomes 7.5%, a 2.5% damage increase. Now, if we're going to take away percentages for a second, going from 5 to 7.5 means you're increasing by 2.5. Half of 5 is 2.5. So, what is half of 100%? 50%. Ergo, this gives you a 50% damage buff. The Crystal Totem also buffs damage. It doesn't cost health, but it's only active for a limited amount of time, while also buffing as many hits as Kotal Kahn can muster in that time. So, this crazy combo becomes this. Almost 50% for one bar, thanks to the 33% damage increase. Now, normally characters only have one damage buff, or they can't stack them. If they can stack them, their damage goes through the roof. Like, I don't know, Kotal Kahn, who, if you have 50% and then you have 33%, you would expect an 83% increase in damage, right? Well, you'd be wrong. That did almost double damage. Even considering 50 plus 33, that is still 83%. You would have reasonably expected this attack to do 9% exactly, not almost 10. And that's because of the way the math is placed out. If you do Crystal first and then this, you get the same damage input. So what's going on here? Well, what's happening is that usually when you buff anything, you need a base stat to work with. In Pokemon, this is a prime example. If you're doubling your attack with Swords Dance, you need to know what the number is of attack that you're doubling. In the case of Kotal Kahn and Mortal Kombat X, what you're doubling is the damage that you're doing, which is assigned almost manually by the developers. This could have been a 7 or a 3 if they so chose. It's just a matter of how much damage each move does. Now, Kotal Kahn can then buff these moves. And when you're doing it on a percentage by percentage base, and you do not focus on any base stat to work with, suddenly you have percentage increases working on previous percentage increases. That might sound confusing, but basically, instead of 50% of your normal damage, it's 50% of this damage. So that means that it's effectively a slight boost to how much damage the damage boost does, because it's increasing by what is 50% of the new number, not the old number. So hopefully that makes sense, but I think I can most succinctly demonstrate this point by performing a magic trick. I'm going to remove 92% of Triborg's health in 3 moves using this. Are you ready? Congratulations. That was almost 95% of Triborg's health in one fell swoop. That 94 and some change, or 92 and some change percent. Because of the 3, because when you have a 99.5% boost, roughly doubling your damage, a 16% projectile is going to hurt like the dickens. And even without that, with just the damage buff, it's still a 14% versus an 11%. This projectile is strong. But the thing is, you could get even more damage if you're feeling clever. Kotal Kahn has a parry mechanic, which allows him to get a... Let's see, that was a 1 point... There we go. So it's another 33% increase. It's another 33% increase on top of that. Yes, this does mean that these can stack, and you may have seen combos online of a Kotal Kahn just spamming parry, especially the meter burn parry, because it's really fast, especially if it catches something. This is impractical, because eventually you could theoretically keep stacking boosts in order to do 3 or 4 health life bars with the damage, but the setup is so insane that kind of doesn't become worth it. A patient Kotal Kahn player, however, who is willing to kind of play the long game and sacrifice one of his hits on the blood cut, all of a sudden is big trouble in Little China. So, in short, if you're going to make a fighting game, I would highly recommend that you consider someone's base damage output first before you start throwing additives on. You can have them stack. Just keep in mind that if you don't have a base, you're going to have runaway buffs like this. Excuse me. There we go. And all of a sudden, an X-ray combo actually kind of becomes worth it. That's the power of multiplicative percentages and such. Kind of crazy that I almost failed math twice in high school, huh? Don't forget to be awesome, my friends, and have some fun with this one.